Hey. I hope you all are doing well today. Hello, welcome to this Sunday's live stream. Now, I know that last Sunday we had quite a few technical difficulties. I'm hoping that worked out or is working out a little bit better today. I think our internet connection is a little bit better. But in case you missed last Sunday, I know we did not do the live stream, but I did have to pivot a little bit. So we'll talk about that in just a second. But if you're new here, welcome. If you've been here with me for a while, welcome. I really appreciate you for being here. My name is Brittany Lewis. I'm a professional artist, graphic designer, and tarot deck enthusiast. And Sundays is the day that I work on my dream project, the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. And this Sunday is no exception to that. So what happened was last Sunday, whatever was going on with the audio, I think as a side effect for the winter storm that we had, the internet was a little wonky and we were not able to hear very well what I was saying. So what I did instead of doing the live stream was that I went and did a separate standalone video all about flats, pretty much what I was going to do in our live stream that Sunday. So this go around, we did the same thing, just kind of recorded it as a standalone thing. So if you have not had an opportunity to check that out, this is what the thumbnail looks like. All you do is go to my YouTube channel, click on that, and you'll get caught up on where we are today. Now, before we get into what we're going to get into, just a little bit of housekeeping. A couple of things that you can do to help me along is, for one, if you find something valuable in this live stream, if you just enjoy watching me do what I do and do what I love, please hit the thumbs up. That helps me out a whole lot. If you want to be notified for any future videos or live streams or anything like that, be sure to hit the subscribe button. And if you have a project that you are wanting to start, maybe you're looking for someone to do some illustrations for you, some graphic design work, my books are currently open until March. Or for the first quarter through March. So if you think I might be perfect for something that you have in mind, please be sure to visit my website, blewisarts.com. I'll show you what that looks like. And click on the Work With Me, which will give you a little bit of a short questionnaire to tell me more about you, more about your goals and your project that you have in mind. And then we can get that ball rolling. All right. So without further ado, let's get into it. So yes, last Sunday, I did, we had the failed live stream. Things happen, right? Monday, I pivoted and posted the flats video. So we are picking right back up where we left off with the flats, and I'm going to make myself just a little bit smaller, but up to the corner so you guys can see a little bit better what's going on. I pretty much just laid down the flats for this image. Right now, just a little bit of housekeeping. Again, I am working in Clip Studio Paint. This is just my digital illustration program of choice. Now, that last video was the same program and it seems to have gotten quite a bit of traction. So what I'm thinking of doing is just sharing more and more of the process, maybe in standalone videos. I'm not really sure, I hadn't decided yet. But we did lay down the flats and I organized all of my layers and labeled them so that I know exactly what I'm going to be working on at any given time. Right. So that was the first thing that we did once we settled on our sketch. So today we're just going to start laying in some details. I have not decided yet if I want to work on the sky because I don't know yet if my pyramid is going to remain a traditional pyramid or not. Or if it's going to be like a portal, which is what we discussed in the development of this card. Now, before we get too deep into it, I want to make one quick shout out to my mom. It is her birthday. So if you guys watch this live, leave her a comment, wish her a happy birthday, Mom. Thank you so much for all that you do for me. She's probably one of the biggest supporters of my artistic journey, and I love you so much. So happy birthday. I hope you have a wonderful day. All right. And I hope I don't make you blush if you watch this back. All right, so let's look at what we have. So I do have my sky, my background. I did do a little bit more work on it from the last video. I smoothed things out and made it a little bit clearer, so I wouldn't have to do that later. I could have gone and just did a manual gradient, but I did it a little more, or not a manual gradient, but sort of like a more automatic situation where I lay in all of the colors and it does it by itself. But I wanted to use the brush so that I have a little more control over where the colors landed. And so we do have the background. Again, I'm not really sure yet how I want to approach it, but what I could do is lay in some stars. I think what I want to do is work on our character, right? Either the character or the sand dunes, but I think we're going to work on the character today because characters tend to be the easiest thing for me to do and for me to draw people, of course. And so I think we're going to go ahead and work on her. And because this is a character that we've seen in previous cards, that means I've drawn her a couple of times. She should be pretty easy to do. So I think this live stream, we're going to focus a little bit on that today. Now, as mentioned in a previous video, this character is a character that shows up in the strength card, and that's showing up in my reference panel, which is right below my face. So where there's the little girl who's emerging from this forest with her fox demon, her nine-tailed fox. And then we see her again in the page of swords, where she is a little bit younger, and maybe she just went into this, she just started her adventure, right? So this card kind of picks up on the story of this particular character, right? So we have some things that are the same across the board so that we know that this is the same person. She has the same outfit, she has the same hair. Now, we don't see her face in this particular card, but there are some things that we can continue to do with her to let the audience know that this is the same person. Now, she is older than all the other two images that we've created for her. And that is to say that through life, she's still on this journey, right? You may reach a goal, you may have a life changing event that happens, but life doesn't stop there. Your journey doesn't stop there. You're learning and you're growing, and all of that does not stop once you've sort of reached a certain plateau. And that is a thing that we explore a lot in the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. Now, I know we have a lot of new people on this channel because that one video really just did some things for me. So just as a quick rundown, the Cosmic Gateways Tarot is a project that I started in 2019. It will consist of 78 cards, a guidebook, and the optional companion book. And those cards look a little something like this. I'll show you what that looks like here. I've been working on this off and on for 5 years. I am a full-time artist, so I'm not able to devote a ton of time. So Sundays is the day that I set aside for that, right? Or it has been the days that I've set aside since June of 2024. So we have to make room to work on your dreams and things like that. But the object, or sort of the theme of this deck, is an expansion on the Fool's Journey, right? It came about when I went through my own sort of, stepping stone in my spiritual development. And I learned that once you go through a thing, your learning does not stop, right? So we're going to expand on that thing with this particular character. And again, I think she would be pretty easy to work on. And then I might also bounce around and work on some of the background and things like that. But today it's going to be pretty chill live stream, I would say. So what I've done is I've gone and located my skin tone layer in my layers panel. If I turn it off, that should turn off her skin. If I turn it back on, it'll turn it back on. I don't necessarily want to disturb my base layer, right? This is my flats that I laid, or my flat layer that I laid down. I'm going to be working on top of this, right? And I do this so that I don't disturb what's going on underneath it. So I may not like what I do once I start working on her actual skin tone and things like that. And so in order to keep the base, so I don't have to start over, I create a layer on top of that. That way I can do what I want to do. And then if it doesn't work out, then I can delete it and still have my base tone in place. So before I do that, I am going to clean up her flats a little bit, or her flat layer a little bit, because I'm seeing a little bit of distortion where I was just laying down color fairly quickly. So we're going to clean that up, and that is going to make things a whole lot smoother. That's something that we will do as we go through. I know in that video I was laying down things relatively quickly, where I didn't spend a whole lot of time working on perfection, and that's okay. I just needed to know exactly what colors to start with, and then I allow myself to build on top of that. And the same goes with how I work in terms of my sketches. I don't commit, I'll have a sketch or a base idea, but I do allow myself to be able to tailor or fix or change or, manipulate things. You want to keep yourself open for creative inspiration. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to grab that skin tone. We're still on our flat layer, and we're just coloring inside the lines, just like you would a coloring book. Just going to color her arm in a little bit clearer, because I am going to lighten up the sketch here in a bit. And I want to make sure that I have a pretty solid foundation for where things go and where things should be. And once I lighten things up, that'll allow me to see it just a little bit better and see it up against the other, elements of this particular illustration. So yeah, that video seemed to have done really well. I know that there are lots and lots of people who are interested in getting into digital illustration, getting into digital art. Maybe they're starting off as traditional illustrators. Like I had a conversation recently on Threads with an artist who is was working with sketches, but she was working in MS Paint, and I ain't heard MS Paint in a really long time. But the idea was she was trying to find a program that she could use, or he or she, I'm not really sure what it was, but that they could use so that they could sketch and then import the sketch into whatever program they're using and then draw however many layers. And so I know that there are also other people who are just looking to dabble a little bit. Maybe they like what they see when they see digital art. Maybe it's people just trying to understand the field. So I know that there is certainly a audience for learning. And myself, I've been in digital art for a very long time. I've had lots of practice and I'm still learning. That's one of the things that I pride myself in, is continuing to learn and grow and to master the medium that I choose to work in. And so, yeah, I'm all for showing or sharing what I've learned along the way and what I continue to learn along the way. And when I say a long time, I've been a digital artist or been in digital art since the early 2000s. So it's been a minute. All right. So what I just did was I lowered the opacity of my sketch, meaning I made it lighter, right? So if I made it darker and stand out, it'll look like this. And then I just kind of lowered that a little bit. And I do have this set to multiply so that it will show up on top of whatever I put underneath it, right? And it'll show up in a way where it's blending into the colors underneath it. So it's not so much a distraction. At a certain point, when we have enough information down, I'll actually turn off the sketch altogether and then we'll tighten up the illustration. But I am pulling colors from my current character in my preview, not my preview, in my reference panel right below me. So if I hover over it, there is a eyedropper tool. I am grabbing colors from this particular character so that I have, again, some consistency with her skin tone. Because I've already figured all of that out, right? I've drawn her twice at this point. And so we've already sort of figured out, what her skin should look like. And we're going to use that information. Now, as I'm doing this, and I don't know how clear it's showing up on the screen, but I can see a part of my thumbnail that's a little bit of a distraction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to darken up my sketch a bit, and then I'm going to find that layer and I'm going to turn it off. It's the part that's the skeletal structure that's distracting me right now. So let's see if we can find it in my see if I can find it in my is that it? Nope. And this is why labeling your layers is so important. Because in this case, when I was doing the drawing, I did not label them, or I didn't label all of them. And now I'm having a tough time finding, is this it? There we go. I was having a tough time finding what I needed to turn off. So now it's a little bit cleaner, and I'm going to turn that way back down, maybe a little bit darker so I can see. And then we're going to go back to what I was doing with the details. All right. So that's why labeling your layers is important, because that was a distraction. And I couldn't make heads or tails of it, but it's a whole lot easier if I can you know see what I'm doing. So pretty much when we're drawing or painting things like an arm or a leg, we're painting in a cylinder, right? So this is where learning your basics and learning how to work with just regular old three-dimensional objects comes in handy when it comes to painting body parts, right? All of that is relevant. So I'm just approaching this as a cylinder. And by cylinder, think Pringles can, right? So if you guys are familiar with Pringles, Pringles comes in a cylindrical can. That is the same sort of shape that her or not her forearm, but her like bicep and shoulders is taking. So I'm just going to lay in a little bit of highlight, a little bit of shadow. And this is nothing fancy, again, and you'll hear me say this time and time again across all of my live streams. I'm not doing anything fancy right now. Right now, I'm just kind of laying down baseline information so that I can come back later and tighten it up, right? So she's standing in this sort of clearing, and she's come out of another situation where she may have been traveling. She may have been, going on a spirit quest or something like that. And she's coming out of this space, and she's walking into this sort of a barren desert, but off in the distance, she sees sort of her destination. Now, again, I'm pulling colors from my previous reference, and I did not like that one, so we're gonna go back to something a little bit darker, like this. And so when we're doing this, we also want to take into consideration what we're going for in our scene, right? So when we're setting up colors, we want to make sure that things stand out where they should stand out and things are pushed back where they should be pushed back. Now, the object of this, or the main focus, hey Lee, so glad to see you. The focus of this particular image is to highlight the fact that she is discovering what's in the distance, right? So because of that, what I want to do is place all of my emphasis on what's going on with her, but also once I'm creating distance and once I have to kind of decide how I want to depict this pyramid in the back, that will also be the object of our attention. But we don't want the two things to compete. So we want to make sure that, for one, right now, the main priority is our character. So I'm going to give her the most attention and the most detail when it comes to rendering. And then everything else will sort of be a little bit more secondary. Okay, so again, when we're approaching, drawing things like this, we want to pay attention to, or at least have in mind, what our focus is in our image, and then from there we will use the information that we have to color it in a certain way to deliver a certain message. So we want to be a little bit deliberate, and the easiest way for you to learn how to do that is to sort of study nature, right? Study nature and use your references. There's absolutely nothing wrong with using references. I see a little bit of discourse from time to time with people who feel like, and it's usually somebody that don't know what they're talking about, but there are people out there that exist who feel like if you're an artist, you have to use everything from your imagination, but imagination is fueled by reality, right? And reference is something that has always been used because, again, this is something that a lot of times we're mimicking reality. Now I'm cycling through my brushes because there we go, got a little tangled up. I'm going to increase the size, and I'm just again laying down baseline information, and I'll come back and tighten this up a little bit later. But I'm going to move around her skin and move around. But yeah, use your references. That's also a great way to learn to develop your own style. You are using references if you are studying the masters, right? If you're studying artists that you admire, you don't want to copy them, but you do want to study and take what you can from them, and then use it in your own work. Reinterpret what you've learned, and use it in your own work, right? So there's a book called what is it? Still Like an Artist or something like that. I highly recommend checking that out if you are into sort of developing your style, if you're into learning to be an artist, or you're, in whatever phase of the journey you're in. I think that is a great book to read. It's very easy, very short read. And I highly recommend. I don't know the author's name, but it is called Still Like an Artist. And it is one that I highly recommend picking up. All right. So one of the things that I am noticing just with myself is I have not decided on a light source, right? So I do believe that at some point there's going to be a glow in the background, so that will be a light source. And then I think the rest of it, I think I want to have her relatively neutrally lit, right? So she's just outside. And we want to make sure that, everything that's supposed to be read a certain way, again, is read a certain way. But I don't want to spend a whole lot of time saying, well, the sun is over here and, all of that. We don't have time for that today. Not in this one. Now, we did do that with our Two of Swords, and that was important because the information that I wanted to highlight was in the background, right? So we had to be very, very deliberate about our light sources. In this one, I'm really getting country. In this one, we want to make sure that we just want to take note that she's outside, right? And she's outside sort of at night. So she's not going to have a whole lot of crazy highlights or anything like that in her body and in her shading. But we do want to add a little so that we can denote form, right? So we know that her legs are three-dimensional objects, or at least create the illusion that they are three-dimensional objects. So I hope you guys are having a great new year so far. This year has been super busy, super duper busy. And Lee, I'm glad you're here. I did forget actually, but I just came across my mind. I need to send you guys some information for the artwork and things like that I promised you. And I'm so sorry for taking forever in 3 days to do that, but I will get it to you soon. Soon enough, because it crossed my mind recently. I was like, oh crap, I didn't send off that information. So I'm sorry, but I will get that to you. Now, if you guys again are interested in learning more about digital art, And I'm thinking, because there are so many people who are just getting into it, I'm really thinking about going to the absolute basics and exploring tablets with you guys. So we can talk a little bit about the kinds of things that you can draw on, because I know a lot of people tend to think that you only have the option of an iPad. I'm not drawing on the iPad now, right? I'm drawing on a Huion screen display. But even this is not your only option, right? There are lots and lots of companies out there right now who are putting out products, and quality products at that, so that you can have an option depending on your budget and how much you want to spend, that's quality and worthwhile, that'll kind of get you off the ground. Now, I started with a graphic tablet, which is sort of like a trackpad, and it came with a stylus, and you would pretty much draw. And where I am looking directly at what I'm drawing now, with the graphics tablet, I would look at the computer screen and then draw, right? So it was a lot of hand-eye coordination, and it took a little bit of learning, right, to do. But that is a very affordable option that you can have. Of course, everyone loves the iPad, so that is something that you can, certainly use as well. Now, because this leg and her left leg is sort of pointing out, right? Pointing this way, I am going to shade it just a little bit different, so that we know that her calf is turned a certain way. So very easy. This is probably, and I probably should have said this for last because I'm just about done with her skin. But let's move on to, I guess, let's do her hair, right? Now, in this case, I think I am going to go ahead and do a layer on top of her hair layer, and the layers panel is off to the right. There is right in here where I'm circling, I'm going to label that hair details. And then at some point, once I get it to where I would like, I am going to merge those layers so that my file isn't so big. But we're going to go ahead and keep going. I figured this card would probably be one that would not take too long to develop, just based on the fact that the character is someone I've already drawn. So once I've drawn something once, it's pretty easy for me to come back and work on that same character again. And also the background is pretty simple, right? We do want to make sure that we emphasize a story. So I'm going to go grab my texture brush, because she does have afro hair, right? And we're going to add some texture to her hair. We do not want to compete with our background. All right, so we're going to wait on our computer to auto save real quick. And you guys can't see it, but it's like a spinning bubble. There it is. Come on, auto save. And then we're going to work on her hair a little bit, and then we'll just move around. Might work on her outfit, and then we'll get to the background. So today might be a pretty quick live stream. I know that this is going to be a quick card. I might have to drag it out because I'm not quite ready for the next card yet. But we'll see. We'll see. All right. So we do have a blue background, and she does have blue hair, right? So we do want to make sure, and I might have to come back to this later on, but we want to make sure that her hair sort of stands out against whatever's going on in the background, because the colors are so very similar, right? So we want to make sure that we are intentional about laying those colors down. And then we're just going to add some texture. So anytime I'm working on like a digital portrait or illustration, I usually am only using a couple of brushes. That is my main sort of round brush, which is what I did the first part of her skin with. That's what I did all of my flats with. And then I also use a texture brush where it's necessary. Now, because her skirt, and I'll kind of show you a little bit about that in the reference panel, her skirt has a little bit of a different texture, right? There are some sort of sparkles and folds and all kinds of things like that. And so I'll show you how I achieve that with a different texture brush, but even that's pretty simple. The main thing is going to be setting up that initial, like these dark spots and the highlights and things like that, so that it feels like she's wearing maybe like a cowhide skirt or something like that, something leather. And I'll show you how we do that. So I'm going to make this just a little bit darker in certain spots, like so. And then I'm going to grab my regular round brush and we just going to go ahead and tighten this thing up. So I'm going to zoom up here and I am going to zoom in a bit so that we can add even more detail to her hair. And this is small. This is intended to be on a card, so it doesn't have to be exceptionally detailed, but we do want to have that polished look. We are going for going to achieve or going for achieving the polished look, just like the strength card, which is what we're looking at in our reference panel, and just like the page of swords, which is where she also shows up. So we want to make sure that we don't necessarily want to skip on the details, but we don't want to I'm not going in here to draw individual strands or anything like that. I just want to clean this up just a bit and we can add some texture in her hair like so. And that's why I really enjoy drawing like the afros and locks and things like that, because it's a lot freer to me. I do actually ironically have a hard time drawing straight hairstyles. It is something that I struggle with. But when it comes to, I guess because this is the type of hair that I have, so it's a lot easier for me to draw something I can identify with. But I like to do something like this, so we might lighten this up a bit and add a little bit of highlight like so that we get right like that until I'm happy with it, and that looks good. Now I might go back down to her skin details now that I'm zoomed in a bit, and I'm going to give her a shadow here. So this is the back of her ear, right? So the back of her ear kind of stands out against her skull, right? So I'm painting this area back here, right? And we're going to make sure we separate her neck from her chin. I'm going to add a little bit of a shadow underneath like so. I'm going to accentuate that shadow underneath her ear. And we're just laying in information. Now this is easy because again, we don't really see her face in this card. So we don't have to have too much. I'm gonna lower my sketch a little bit more just so I can kind of see what's going on. Another way I could have approached that is just to turn it off, but I do want to see a little bit more of my sketch. So we're going to do it this way so that I can see how what I'm laying down shows up just a little bit better. All right. So in here, she has a shadow where her arm meets sort of her back, right? So there's going to be a shadow here. And I'm going to broaden my brush just a bit, and I'm going to smooth things out ever so slightly. Now, as I lay down the color, right, because this brush is a hard round brush, if I lay it down strong, it'll be something like this, right? But if I lay it down somewhat softer, I get an in-between color. So I'm grabbing my eyedropper, I'm grabbing this in-between color, and that's going to help me blend it out a little bit without necessarily smudging anything, which we will do here in just a bit. But that helps give me a little bit of a range in my colors. And you'll see me pick up and I'm hitting the Alt key. So you'll see me pick up colors with the eyedropper tool. I can hit the Alt. If I wanted to just use the eyedropper tool by itself, I would hit I, and that way it will just, continue to pick up colors. But because I want to do it and get right back into brushing the colors in, I just hit Alt. It allows me to pick it up for just a second, and then I'll go back to it. So I'm going to grab a smudge brush. This one has a little bit of texture. This is called Smudgy. It's one that I got from the artist Eric Anthony on his Gumroad shop. I like it. I like it because, again, it gives me some great texture. I really enjoy a painterly look in my digital illustrations, but there are times where things need to be a little bit smoother. So if we're looking at it here, I'll zoom in just a little bit more in case you're watching this on your phone. If we're looking at it here, there's a little bit of striation that we may not want to achieve, right? So I'm turning off my sketch so you can see it a little bit clearer. If I don't want that texture, what I'll do is I can do a couple of things. I can grab my brush and continue to sort of work it over and, lay down colors, pick up colors, or I can go back to my smudge brushes and I can get one that's a little bit finer that'll give me more of an airbrushed look, and I can go over just like that and it'll smoothen it out. The only thing for me about that is I don't necessarily like the extra smoothness of it. I do again like a little bit of texture. I like for things to look like I painted it, right? I like for it to look like I actually sat and drew on my screen to do, but there are times where being smooth is, or having a smooth surface is important. So you want to play with your tools. You want to make sure that you're getting the result that you want. And that's one of the beautiful things about digital is you can work it and work it and work it. You can have as many layers as you like. You can do pretty much what you want to do a little bit easier than you would be able to with traditional mediums like your acrylics, like your watercolors and things like that. There's a lot more room for error when it comes to digital art. So I really enjoy it. I truly do. Now, I had not done a traditional painting in a long time up till recently, and that was very soothing. But I also sort of made note that like I miss being able to hit the undo button, right? But it does all come in handy. I feel one sort of helps the other, and I enjoy them both. So I did turn off my sketch so we can kind of have a look at what we've done so far. It's come together pretty quickly. Usually that's how it goes when I'm painting people. Backgrounds and objects is where I take a little bit of time to work things out. All right, so we're gonna approach this other arm. Same deal. I am thinking of this again as a cylinder. This cylinder has a shadow because this part of her arm. Show you here. We'll pick a brighter color. This part of her arm is somewhat to the side, so it's not catching the light quite the same as the outer part of her arm. So we want to make sure that we are, giving it the proper amount of shadow. Again, because this is at night, we want to make sure that we are honoring the scene that we are creating, right? And we're creating depth, right? So anytime you want to make something look three-dimensional, anytime you want to make something look polished, you want to keep in mind your range of value. So your range of value is your spectrum from light to dark. Now that could be from extreme white to extreme dark. That could be a series of like medium tones, but whatever your brightest bright is, you want to have a dark equal to that. And so that's sort of one of the best ways I've found to be able to create continuity, to be able to create depth, and to give my art that sort of finished, polished look. All right. So we're going to add that same shadow color sort of here where her arm meets her outfit a little bit. And we want to do the same thing here, but only because now this area is sort of clashing with our sand. Now, some of this we may very well have to come back and readjust once we get the sand dunes sort of in the picture, because things are relatively close in value and in color. But right now we're just going to lay down these base tones, and then we'll come back and tweak where we need to tweak. All right, so far she's looking great. Now, see in her legs, we have a little bit of runaway detail here. So we're going to tighten it up with the eraser. And everything else looks pretty good so far. So I'm going to do the exact same thing with her legs that we did with her arms, where we're pretty much going to smudge and move things around as we see fit. If we don't enjoy the texture of something, then we can always smoothen it out. We can always paint over it. But she is wearing sandals, right? So if we go back to our reference image, she is wearing these sandals. Same with our page of swords. She has on the same shoes. And so that is something that we will keep in mind. And quite frankly, because I have not drawn this character in a while, some of the textures, I don't recall how I did, but we're going to figure it out. We are going to figure it out together. All right. So again, we're separating her calves from her, sort of making the indentation where she has knees. We can bring this color down just a bit. like so. We don't have to have it super dark. We don't have to have this super smooth, like this. Now I am going to turn my sketch back on so that I can see, here we go, the shape of her foot. And we want to put her heel in. We want to make sure this feels like this is her foot, right? Get my B brush, like so. And of course, again, some of this is going to be accentuated by her sandals that she's wearing. And we might go ahead and add those in here in a bit since we're pretty much done with her legs for now. All right, so I did not do a flex layer for her sandals. So we're going to do that really quickly right now. And I'm going to put that on top of, actually, I'm going to put that on top of her hair. So I have all of her body parts kind of grouped together. And I don't have them grouped, but like they're arranged in order, right? So I have her hair details. That's over in our layers panel. I have her hair details, her hair flat, her skin details, and her skin flat. So above all of that, I'm going to add a new layer and I'm going to call it sandals flat. All right. And then I'm going to pick up one of these colors, probably this mid orange color, right? And I'm going to lay in where her sandals go. So I'll rotate my screen, which is another beautiful thing about digital art is I can kind of rotate my illustration. And I'm doing this because it'll be easier for me. And then I'm going to grab just my baseline brush and I'm going to lay this in very smooth, very easy, just like this. Now this is a base right now. And what I'll do in just a bit is I'm going to, after this is done, we're going to select it and then we'll start to add the details. And I'll rotate as needed, right? So that I don't have to contort myself in order to get certain layers. And to hit rotate or to rotate your screen in Clip Studio, you just hit the R button and you turn it around and you move it around just like so. And then from here, what we'll do is we will lay in her some shadow, right? Because we're also, even though these are a series of lines, we're also looking at this like a cylinder, right? Because this is going around and wrapping around her leg, eventually her foot. So we do want to treat it like a cylinder so that we reinforce the idea that this is, her leg is a three-dimensional object. And with the same brush width, I don't want to change the width of my brush so that we still have the consistency across sandals. I'm using the same base color, have not changed anything yet. I'm just going to rotate, move things around, and continue to lay this in. And I'm pretty much just following the little trait or the lines that I put in when I did my sketch. I didn't have to make those like 3D or anything like that because I can use the width of my brush in order to make that make sense, right? All right. Now, I'm going to turn this up right. I'm going to see what that looks like. And then we're going to clean it up and make it work. So I'm showing that looks like it's going, there it goes, auto saving again, which is what I like about Clip Studio. It can be a little bit inconvenient because it does this like smack in the middle of you working. But I'm glad that it does, because if it crashes, it creates like a backup file for me. And I have not saved this manually. So that's super duper helpful. All right, so I'm going to lower this size of the brush a little bit, and I'm going to square off where these straps sort of wrap around her ankle. And then we can use our eraser here in a bit to tighten that up just a little bit and make this look like straps. Make them look like sandals. We can clean all of this up, because from here, what we'll do is select it. And to select it, I will hit control, because I'm working on an Apple computer, but I have a Windows keyboard. So I hit control. No, I hit the Windows button, which would be control on an Apple keyboard. But I will hit it to select the information that I've put in this layer. And then what we'll do from there is start adding our texture and start adding all of the details. All right, now I'm going to take my eraser and clean some of that up just a little bit so that we have straighter lines, right? More polished lines like so. You don't have to take off a lot. We just kind of want to clean it up. Just like this. All right. Now, with that being the base of our sandals, I am going to hit Control, or for me, it's the Windows button because I'm using the Windows keyboard. I'm going to create a new layer on top of that, and I'm going to do sandals details. And again, I like to label my layers because by the end of this, there are going to be lots and lots of layers for me to sort through. And I want to make sure that I understand what it is that I'm looking at. Now, I have grabbed a slightly darker color. I am going to, let's see, I want to try to remember how I did the texture. I don't think it was this. So I think I'm going to grab my airbrush. Was it this? Yeah, I was. Okay, so let me go back to what I was on, which is our chalk brush. And I'm going to lay in everywhere I put a shadow on her leg, I'm going to put that same shadow in her sandals. So that'll help us sort of reinforce the fact that this is wrapping around her leg. And wherever there is a highlight, we'll sort of leave it a highlight. Now, her sandals have this sort of tortoise shell appearance to it. So we're going to play that up a little bit. And I am using an opaque chalk brush for the moment to add a little bit of this texture into her sandals. And then what I'm going to do is go grab I have a droplet brush that I use for my stars and things like that. And we're going to mix and match some of these textures so that we get the full sort of effect of her wearing these sandals. All right. So I'm going to go and grab that highlight, add some more highlights where her legs and ankles and things are highlighted. We're going to add that back. Make sure our shadows are where we want them to be. And if I were to deselect that, it'll look like this. So far we have a little bit of texture, right? But it doesn't necessarily stand out against her skin yet. And the reason that is because the values are pretty similar, but we're going to keep working on it. So I'm going to select that area again. I'm going to go and grab this time an airbrush. I have one that's sort of like droplets. This kind of helps me to add even more texture to her sandals, right? That's going to help us out just a bit. This is really cosmetic, but what we're going to do is we're going to separate these straps so that we can kind of tell a little bit more about what's happening and it's not blending so much into her skin. And I'm just playing with this, and we'll see if I do the sky on live, you guys will see me use this brush again for the stars. All right, so now that we have that information in, I need to separate my straps. So I'm going to deselect all of that. And because I don't want to mess up what I've done so far, I'm going to add another layer on top of that, right? Just in case, because I have not drawn this character in a minute. All right. So now from here, I want to add a little bit more detail to her strap. So I'm going to grab my regular old plain brown brush. I'm going to grab a shadow color. See if that's dark enough. It looks dark enough. I'm going to lower the size of my brush, and then I'm going to start to separate where her straps overlap, like so. Now, everything doesn't need to have a line, right? So we want to be somewhat deliberate about what overlaps what. So in this case, I kind of want this strap here to overlap like so. And we're just separating things a bit. And then another thing that we will do here in a bit is we're going to add some shadow. Like our main character here, she has shadow on her legs, so it kind of stands out against her skin. And all of this is going to help us to create the illusion that she's wearing these strappy sandals. So don't be afraid when you're drawing things. If it's like, hey, that doesn't look like it stands out the way that I want to, go ahead and keep working at it. Keep adding details. Think about what you could do to your illustration to make things stand out. Sometimes all you need is a little bit of a dark line, just like this, right? And we'll keep working on it to reinforce this idea. But this one here overlaps too. And then we'll let this overlap here, just like so. And then we have a little bit of like that. And where it needs to be darker, we can always make it darker. Like so. All right. So we're going to zoom out just a bit to see if that's enough. Looks like enough. We got a few more things we can do to make this stand out. So if I was to turn it off, pretty much fades into her skin. If I turn it on, then we get a little bit of differentiation. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go below my sandals flat layer, right? And to this, I'm going to call it sandal shadow. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up her shadow color of her leg so that we're not too off base. I'm going to lower the tone to that just a little bit. And then everywhere her shadow meets, her legs meet where I really want it to feel like it's out against her skin, I'm just going to paint that shadow in just like that. Right? Just like so. And it doesn't have to be super strong. We don't have to do a whole lot. We do want to make sure it's somewhat on the same side of her skin, like so. But just minor details to make this thing stand out. So notice I am putting all of the shadows underneath the straps as opposed to over top of it. You want to keep some consistency, right? So if I start with them underneath as I did here, and I want to make sure that I continue doing that same thing along the way. Now here, because she has quite a few straps, I might make this entire area a lot darker, right? And anywhere I feel like it is just a little bit too light against her skin, I'll add that shadow. Same here. Oh, actually, I just broke my own rule. Went on top, so we want to go underneath it. There we go. Just like that. Now, she does have a base to these sandals, so we want to, I think I want to do it on top of all of this. What is this? This is our naming this layer sandals outline, and that's just the little dark shadow area like that goes in between each strap. Now, what I'm going to do now is add the soles of her shoes, right? And I'm just going to grab this color right on from our reference image, and I am going to add this in. Now, we have to take into consideration that her foot is stepping on top of this, so we don't necessarily want it light, but we do want to make sure we emphasize the fact that she has this on. And the base of her sandals is pretty close to her skirt. I'm going to make that just a bit darker, and I'm going to paint that in. And this is a case where actually I don't have to add more details to this. Just want to make sure that we know that she has these sandals on, right? And I can clean that up here where we have a little bit of intersection. We just want to make this look neater. And I'm seeing that her skin tone is bleeding over the top. So I'm just going to go clean that up a bit. So I'm going to go down to her skin details to see if it's a detail or if it's the base. It is the details. Okay. And I'm going to go in here and erase that just to tighten it up. All right, so far we have one sandal done. And again, we may have to go back and adjust that. It just kind of depends, but we're going to work on the other side and we'll go from there. So this is one that's mostly completed, right? On her left leg, and then we have her right leg. And so we're going to go back and go through the same motion. We're going to start with the lines that separate the straps. After that, we're going to add the shadows to the underside of her straps, and then we'll add the soles of her shoes. So I'm going to go get I think it was on the sandals detail. Anytime I'm not sure what's on what layer, I'll turn it off and I will turn it back on. So that is the wrong one. It is sandal outline. I actually named it that. Okay. All right. Now on this side, we're going to do the same thing. We may even go a little bit darker, but we're going to separate each strap from the other. Make our brush a little bit smaller, even smaller than that. A little bit bigger. Here we go. Like so. And I'm going to rotate my canvas where I need to. Like this. So anytime I have a intersection of a strap, wherever those two straps meet is where I'm going to be adding this dark line. And I can take a softer eraser and make that a little bit smaller if I don't like how harsh that is. I can soften up the edges like that. Then I'll get right back to it. Okay. I think I want this particular strap to go over everything. So I'm going to make it look like this. I might even use this browner color. I'm going to take that soft eraser and soften it up just a bit. I'm not erasing to necessarily delete a thing, but I am erasing it to soften it up a bit. I don't like how that looks. All right. Turning this thing back around. I'm going to pick up my darker color again, and we're going to do our neck strap like this. All right. Then I'm going to zoom out. See how I like it. See if I need to add anything. Looks like maybe I will go back to my sandal details and I'm going to grab that texture brush. It looks like I might need a little bit more this dark brown. Oh, I don't think. Let me do this. Here we go. This dark brown, just to sort of give me a little more, you know, form, right? So, okay, there it is. Auto save it again. So what you guys can't see on the screen is I get the little iMac spinning balloon bubble. So anytime I see that, I'm like, okay, I know we're getting ready to freeze just a wee bit. But I just want to add just a little bit of definition, a little more definition to these to this side of the straps to again reinforce the fact that this is wrapped around her leg. And I might can even go a little bit darker. What I'm going to do is grab my airbrush and I'm going to add more of that in like so. And we get that tortoiseshell sort of effect. All right. I think that looks good. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is go to my shadow and add the shadows between her straps here. And I'm going to pick that color up from the shadows that we did earlier so I don't have to try and figure out what color to use. And I'm going to go underneath her straps like so, just to help them stand out a bit. Like so. All right. So we're looking pretty good. And then from there, I'm going to do the bottoms of her sandals. And I don't recall which layer I had those on. Let's see. I guess I'm going to add it to the details. That's good enough for me. I'm just going to pick up this dark brown color because all you can see is the base of her sandal here. And that's it. All right. So I think we're going to call this a live stream. I'm going to continue to work on her today. I'll probably have her finished by next week. I'm going to do her outfit and her collar. But I thank you so much for joining me. This was a quick one. I'm glad and I'm hoping you guys didn't tell me the audio is messed up today. So I'm hoping that it came through okay. But I do appreciate you watching it, whether you're watching this live or the replay. And I hope that you guys learned something for those of you who are interested in how I work digitally. I will probably sit here with this for the next hour. Again, I'll have this done, the character done by our next live stream. So we can keep moving on this project and keep this thing going so that we can go ahead and get it published and printed and in your hands. For those of you who do like tarot and like to read with this particular deck, I really want to have you, use it, right? Finally, it's been 5 years, 6 years. I don't know, 5 years, I think. So anyhow, thank you so much for watching. Be on the lookout for more of those in-depth tutorials, because again, I think that video that we had last week, and I'll show you just in case you guys missed it, where we worked on the flats for this picture. That is the first step that I take in most digital illustrations that I do. If you have not had an opportunity to check that out, I highly recommend it. If you're into learning the illustration side of this, right? If there's something that you'd like to see from me, let me know. I'm still, like I said, trying to find my pocket in this thing, but right now I do enjoy showing the process of creating the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. And so until next time, I hope you all have a happy, wonderful, prosperous, and creative and harmonious week. Until next time, peace.